This log is for May 30th, 2013. Well, our analysis for yesterday gave us a little bit of an edge today. We saw yesterday this area of accumulation. We dipped in there day before today, and as you can see, very choppy movement down after having some ease of movement coming in just behind it. What this is telling me is that buyers were aggressive and pushed it all the way back up to this area of resistance. And when sellers finally overtook the buyers, took a lot of work and took a lot of choppy movement to do it. So that was very bullish to us. At the close, we noticed we had a little bit of change of behavior. So sequence for change in trend. We were oversold in the trend channel, had a violation of the trend channel with some decent demand coming in, the most demand we've seen since this down move began. We had two waves up. If you sum those up, it'd be a much higher wave. So that was our signal to look for longs. In the morning, as you can see, the EMA was definitely starting to turn up. 16 was above 0. And when we got a 310 oscillator buy on the 9,000, that was a chance to go long. So if you zoomed in even further on the 3,000 tick, if you wanted to get a little better entry, you would notice these bullish bars right in here. A little bit of a spring down here too was a good reason to get in. I passed on this trade in the morning. Can't remember why, but in hindsight, looking back, it was a great trade. Had a little bit of no supply, no follow through, turned up. That was probably worth about 8 points, would be my guess. I did try a second trade later in the afternoon. Didn't really produce as much. I took a long ride in here, ended up scratching it, and then when we got the spring in here, I went long again. Also another 310 oscillator buy. I only got about 2.5 points out of that. And after that, I called it a day. I was not interested in shorting. For tomorrow, my analysis for tomorrow would be this. Looking at the daily chart, to me, this looks like bullish action to me. We're starting to form what looks to be a wedge pattern. I would probably place 55 to 45 odds of it going up versus going down. We are in a bull trend still. We do have some weakness on this bar back here, but there's not a lot of shortening of the thrust really on this move up. At least it's not super obvious if there is. We got some supply on this bar, which is kind of giving us a little bit of a heads up. It might be preliminary supply. So what that means to me is that we could easily come back up here and break out again to the upside. And we may do that a couple more times before whatever supply that brought this down will eventually slow the trend down, which it will eventually will. So I'm not ruling out that we can go down from here, but we really need to break this level, this 1632.5. And my guess is the way we've been behaving, especially today, even though it was a very weak rally, it's still a bullish sign that when we came down and tested this area, buyers stepped back in again. Volume was low, so this could also be no demand. We'll just have to look at tomorrow's action and determine from there. Also, too, if you were to look at a weekly chart, pull up the weekly. If I was like managing a position in this time frame, I would see this bar and recognize it as being negative, especially lots of volume. Could be considered stopping volume. But this week's panning out to be an inside day, so we haven't had an immediate reaction to the downside. So I'd probably stick with the trade and give it a chance to go back up again. If it took out the low of this bar, if I was maybe long back in here, I'd probably take my profit, especially given that we don't have the trend channel here, but as you can see, it's obviously overbought in this trend channel. So I would definitely take profits there. I wouldn't go short per se. So I still am pretty bullish overall, and if we do get a pullback, it'll be a pullback to look to eventually buy. Maybe go for a week or two. So for tomorrow, this rally obviously is a little weak. A little bit of shortening of the thrust on this move up. If you look at the 27,000, it's even a little clear. You can see this is a choppy move down versus this ease of movement up. Well, this is an even choppier move up versus this move down, believe it or not. So it's probably just more indicative to a trading range, but you never know. I'll be on my toes. My game plan for tomorrow is if we up thrust yesterday's high, I'll look to sell short and cover it probably around yesterday's lows would be a pretty far target. Probably more apt to be 1652 and a half, unless we really have some supply coming in and lots of ease of movement that I might hold out a little longer. But um, and then if we break below there, I'd consider maybe shorting it down here. But really, it's a tight trading range. I'm going to need to see a lot of ease of movement and demand or supply to come in for me to go one way or the other. So I'm kind of neutral. I'll go either way. I'll play the previous day's highs and lows for a trade to come back into the middle of the trading range. If we get a lot of volume in the first 15 minutes and a break above one of these levels, then I'll definitely look to be a little more aggressive. But fairly neutral for tomorrow. And most likely, my guess is we'll go sideways. Another note, statistically speaking, Fridays tend to be big down days, more likely to be a down than an up day. So that's something just to keep in the back of your mind. Anyways, hope you all have good trading tomorrow and have a good weekend.